Okay, we are going to be working on making a double-ended synthetic dread. First thing you start out with is the hair, obviously. Everyone has their own brand that they like best. The important thing to remember is that it is the Kanekalon hair, the synthetic braidable hair that will seal with steam and is flame resistant. So basically, if I can get this rubber band undone. Okay. We get our nice loose weft of hair, and the next we're going to separate out the section for the first dread. Generally speaking, I like my dreads to be a little bit on the thinner side with tapered ends, so that's what I'm going to be demonstrating here. You don't have to do it that way. This is just the way that I prefer. You can alter it any way that you like, but the basics will stay the same. Yeah, so with sectioning, I usually like to take about this much, so maybe like the width of your pointer finger. Let's see. Again, you can take as much or as little as you like. They steam easier if you have a little less, and remember that dreads always puff up after they've been used, so making them a bit thinner to start out with is kind of nice if you don't want a really big head of poofy dreads a few months down the road. So once you have your section taken out, then you're going to have either a shoelace or a piece of string or a piece of fabric tied around the back of a chair, whatever's handy to keep it at your correct height. And we're going to take the hair in half and put it around the fabric, and then I like to do just a little tie of the actual hair itself at the center there. And then I do this part a little differently. The centers of synthetic dreads are done differently by numerous people. You'll see it with loose hair in the middle or dreaded all the way through. I personally like to just make a small braid in the center of mine. I find it's much easier when installing the dreads, but that's personal preference again. So you can either just tie it off and leave it there, or you can do what I'm going to do. Just make a simple little braid at the top here. So I don't go very far down with the braid, just maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Just enough to have a nice anchor in the center of the dread there. So a little braid. Then we're going to take our comb, and we're going to start back combing. Kind of the secret with back combing that I found, start at the top right before your braid and give it a few good little tugs to cinch it in there. And then holding it loosely with your one hand, you take your comb hand and you're going to, don't give yourself too much room when you're, don't start back here with your back combing, because that's going to create a lot of lumps within the dread. Start fairly close with short, quick gestures, gently allowing the fibers to slip loose from your holding hand, being pulled forward in quick motions by the combing hand. So this is pretty loose. Usually you have to comb through it once or twice. So then I kind of just separate it loose again, make a really big mass, and then once more I just tighten the combing of the hair together. It may take a while for you to get your back combing method the way you like it. That's totally fine. Just play around with it. The goal is, after you have it fully back combed, you should be able to run your hand along it like this, and it should taper from the braid to the thickest point of the dread and then taper back down again. Now if you're doing blunted ends or you want fatter dreads, this may look a little different, but for our purposes this is what we're going for. So once you have the one side back combed, then I just kind of pull my braid through to the next side and repeat that back combing process. Now I'm going to show you some of these big loops I was talking about. So you see when I took when I went further away, it created a loop like this. If this happens when you're back combing, no problem. Just pull it loose, always starting at the bottom, right? Just pull it loose, have it nice and tangled, and then go again in your shorter movements, and you'll be able to avoid that. So now that we have the back combing done, we're going to go ahead to the final step, steaming. Now obviously, if you're doing a full set of dreads, you're going to need to do this 50 to 60 times. What's nice about the double-ended synthetic dreads is that you get twice the effect with half the work. So, you know, we might need to make 50 double-ended synthetic dreads, but you'll look like you have 100 in your head once you're done. Single-ended are a little quicker to make because you're only doing one side, but again, you'd have to make 80 to 100 of them to get a full set. So the double-ended has worked really well for me. The next part we're going to work on is steaming. So I have a steam shot, which I use most of the time when I do my dreads. It's really nice if you're going to be making a lot of them. I would suggest getting one from Walmart or Canadian Tire or something like that. They're fairly inexpensive and just make steaming go a whole lot easier if you're planning on making a lot of dreads. But right now we're working on with items that most people will have handy. So you'll need a flat iron set to its hottest. You'll need a little bucket with some hot water and just a clean rag. If the rag is a little bit thinner, it's going to be a little easier for the steam to pass through. So just keep that in mind. Now what we'll do, I've got my hot iron heating up. The first step of the steaming process, we're going to take the back comb Dreadlock, and I always just kind of fluff it, smooth it, get it so it feels nice and consistent all the way through. Then you start at the top and you begin your twist. I usually twist about 2/3 of the way down the dread before I start steaming. So I twist, and as you see, as I'm twisting, I'm kind of smoothing it with my thumbs, just getting those irregularities out. You don't have to do that. It is not necessary to create a dread. It just makes a neater finish once you're done. So if that's important to you, try and do the thumb smoothing as you're rolling. If you don't care, if you like them a little poofier, a little messier, then don't worry about it. Just give it a nice roll. So once I have about 2/3 of it rolled, I wring out my rag, so you don't want it dripping on you, but you can definitely have it a little wetter. Then you're going to drape it across the lock. And then you're going to grab your handy old iron and just start steaming it. Yeah, it's not that difficult. As you can kind of tell with these things, it doesn't take a huge amount of dedication or skill. It just takes time. So yeah, secret as you're steaming here. Don't try and keep your steamer on the section you're doing the first time you touch it for a good amount of time, because that initial steam hitting it is really going to lock it in. So I usually go over it once, hold it down a bit longer, and then I just go over it a second time just to make sure I got all the little pieces. Okay, so then we take it off. You can see the finished dread there, and then we're going to continue rolling the bottom third portion of the lock. And getting to these ends can be kind of tricky. I kind of roll it between my finger and thumb to get a nice tight roll at the end there. So again, oh, I turned my iron off. We'll wring out our rag, lay it over the dread, and steam, 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 steam. Now with the steam shot, you don't have to use a rag or anything. You just roll and then basically blast it with the steam gun, and it's nice. It goes really quickly. This honestly doesn't. It's not that bad though. I mean, as long as you've got some patience for it, as long as you're excited about making your locks and can't wait to get them, it won't take too long at all. So then, with the ends, if you noticed, I kind of held my straightener on there for a little longer, just to seal it off, and then afterwards you can just very gently, I mean, you don't want to squeeze hard because this hair can melt under the heat, but I just kind of very gently hit it with the iron at the end just to really seal that in so it doesn't come undone. And then obviously we roll that braid in the center again, and then we do the other side. So I'm just going to quickly do this one last time. You see that the kind of thumb smoothing motion that I'm doing. Once more, rolling. When you get to this thick center part, the rolling does get a little more difficult because you are dealing with more hair, like more backcombed hair. Just keep smoothing with your thumbs, keep rolling, you'll get through it eventually. So yeah, again, about 2/3 of the way down. Grabbing the damp cloth, lay it over, wipe your wet hands off before you grab your iron. Might cause a short otherwise. And then again, so see how I kind of hold it for quite a long time right there at the top. And you really want the first contact with that steam to be nice and solid. So a good way to judge as you're doing this is just as you're moving your sections over, just take it the same size as your straightener, you know. You don't need to be running the straightener up and down the length of it the whole time. Just do a nice, firm little clamp each way as you go down. And then after you finish your first run across the dread, do it one more time for good measure. Get all those stray hairs in, and that one we can do quickly. Just kind of hold it down there, and then we'll finish this guy off, and we'll have a double-ended dread. So this is, the way that I've done this is definitely, this is the easiest way, the fastest way I found to do it. But also it's a very basic way. You can do any kind of variation off of this basic dread style, right? You could make them longer, you can make them shorter. And to make it shorter, you would just cut the hair that you're working with initially. Or to make it longer, when we take the section of hair out, if you split that hair in half and stagger those two halves, you'll have one long side on each side, and that can make the hair longer. But for our intents and purposes, we're just doing it the average size, giving you the basic idea of how to do it, and then from there, you can kind of explore and create your own. You can blend different colors of hair together. Really fun. I highly suggest it if you're feeling creative. You can do pretty much anything with it. It's really fun. So again, I'm just gonna take this little end here, very gently, just kind of melt those ends so they stay nice. Then once you have it all steamed, you can go ahead and take it off. We're gonna give it a little trim, give those little tails a trim. And then if there's any little, loose hairs that you don't like, you can cut those off, but at the end of it, should look a little something like this, and that would be your double-ended dread. Happy dreading, have fun.